双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
History of Friedrich II of Prussia, v. 14. By Thomas Carlyle. Book 14. The Surrounding European War Does Not End. August 1742. July 1744. Chapter 1. Friedrich resumes his peaceable pursuits. Friedrich's own peace being made on such terms, his wish and hope was that it might soon be followed by a general European one. That the live coal, which had kindled this war, being quenched, the war itself might go out. Silesia is his farther interest in the controversy, except that it would end itself in some fair manner. He has none. Silesia being settled, think many, thinks Friedrich for one. What else of real and solid is there to settle? The European public, or benevolent individuals of it everywhere, indulged also in this hope. How glorious is my king, the youngest of the kings and the grandest, exclaims Voltaire in his letters to Friedrich at this time, and re-exclaims, till Friedrich has to interfere and politely stop it. A king who carries in the one hand an all-conquering sword, but in the other a blessed olive branch, and is the arbiter of Europe for peace or war. Friedrich III, so Voltaire calls him, counting ill, or misled by ignorance of German nomenclature. Friedrich III, I mean Friedrich the Great, Frederick le Grand, will do this, and do that. Probably the first emergence of that epithet in human speech, as yet in a quite private hypothetic way. Letters of Voltaire. In italic, Œuvre de Frederick. End italic, 22. 100. And c. This last letter is of date July 1742 inch, almost contemporary with the Jauer transparency noticed above. Opinions about Friedrich's conduct, about his talents, his moralities, there were many all wide of the mark, but this seemed clear, that the weight of such a sword as his, thrown into either scale, would be decisive, and that he evidently now wished peace. An unquestionable fact. That latter wished it, yes, right heartily, and also strove to hope, though with less confidence than the benevolent outside public, as knowing the interior of the elements better. These hopes, how fond they were, we now all know. True, my friends, the live coal which kindled this incendiary whirlpool, one of the live coals, first of them that spread actual flame in these European parts, and first of them all except Jenkins's ear, is out, fairly withdrawn. But the fire, you perceive, rages not the less. The fire will not quench itself, I doubt, till the bitumen, sulphur, and other angry fuel have run much lower. Austria has fighting men in abundance. England behind it has guineas. Austria has got injuries, then successes. There is in Austria withal a dumb pride, quite equal in pretensions to the vocal vanity of France, and far more stubborn of humor, the first nation of the universe, rashly hurling its fine-throated hunting pack, or army of the oriflamme, into Austria. See what a sort of badgers, and gloomily indignant bears it has awakened there. Friedrich had to take arms again, and an unwelcome task it was to him, and a sore and costly. We shall be obliged, what is our grand difficulty in this history, to note, in their order, the series of European occurrences, and, tedious as the matter now is, keep readers acquainted with the current of that big war, in which, except Friedrich broad awake, and the ear of Jenkins in somnambulancy, there is now next to nothing to interest a human creature. It is an error still prevalent in England, though long since exploded everywhere else, that Friedrich wanted new wars, new successful robberies, as our gazetteers called them, and did wilfully plunge into this war again, in the hope of again doing a stroke in that kind. English readers, on consulting the facts a little, will not hesitate to sweep that notion altogether away. Shadow of basis. Except in their own angry, uninformed imaginations, they will find it never had. And that precisely the reverse is manifest in Friedrich's history. A perfectly clear-sighted Friedrich, able to discriminate shine from substance, and gravitating always towards the solid, the actual, that of gloire, which he owns to at starting. We saw how soon it died out, choked in the dire realities, that of conquering hero, in the Macedonia's madman style, was at all times far from him, if the reader knew it, perhaps never farther from any king who had such allurements to it, such opportunities for it. This his first expedition to Cilicia, rushing out to seize your own stolen horse, while the occasion answered was a voluntary one, produced, we may say, by Friedrich's own thought and the invisible powers, but the rest were all purely compulsory, to defend the horse he had seized. Clear necessities, and powers very visible, were the origin of all his other expeditions and warlike struggles, which lasted to the end of his life. That recent Moravian foray, the joint stock principle in war matters, and the terrible pass a man might reduce himself to, at that enormous gaming table of the gods. If he lingered there, think what considerations these had been for him, so that his look became farouche, in the sight of Valory, and the spectre of ruin kept him company, and such hell-dogs were in chase of him, till Zaslow, when the dice fell kind again. All this had been didactic on a young docile man. He was but 30 gone, and if readers mark such docility at those years, they will find considerable meaning in it. Here are prudence, moderation, clear discernment, very unusual veracity of intellect, as we define it, which quality, indeed, is the summary and victorious outcome of all manner of good qualities, and faithful performances, in a man, given up to strong delusions, in the tragical way many are. Friedrich was not, and, in practical matters, very seldom indeed believed a lie. Certain it is, he now resumes his old Rainsburg program of life, probably with double relish, after such experiences the other way, and prosecutes it with the old ardor, hoping much that his history will be of halcyon pacific nature. After all, would the mad war, whirlpool, but quench itself, dangerous for singeing a near neighbor, who has only just got out of it? Fain would he be arbiter, and help to quench it, but it will not quench, for a space of 2 years or more, till August 1744, 26 months in all. Friedrich, busy on his own affairs, with carefully neutral aspect towards this war, yet with sword ready for drawing in case of need, looks on with intense vigilance, using his wisest interference, not too often either. In that sense and in that only, be at peace. Oh, come to peace. And finds that the benevolent public and he have been mistaken in their hopes. For the next 2 years, we say, for the first year, or till about August 1743, with hope not much abetted, and little actual interference needed. For the latter 12-month, with hope ever more abating, interference, warning, almost threatening ever more needed, and yet of no avail, as if they had been idle talking and gesticulation on his part. Till, in August 1744, he had to, but the reader shall gradually see it, if by any method we can show it him, in something of its real sequence, and shall judge of it by his own light. Friedrich's domestic history was not of noisy nature during this interval, and indeed in the bewildered records given of it, there is nothing visible, at first, but one wide vortex of simmering inanities, leading to the desperate conclusion that Friedrich had no domestic history at all, which latter is by no means the fact. Your poor Prussian dry as dust, without even an index to help you, being at least authentic, if you look a long time intensely and on many sides, features do at last dawn out of those sad vortexes, and you find the old Rainsburg program risen to activity again, and all manner of peaceable projects going on. Friedrich visits the Baths of Aachen, what we call Aix La Chapelle, has the usual inspections, business activities, recreations, visits of friends. he opens his opera house. This first winter, he enters on law reform, strikes decisively into that grand problem, hoping to perfect it. What is still more significant, he in private begins writing his memoirs, and furthermore, gradually determines on having a little country house, place of escape from his big Potsdam palace, and gets plans drawn for it, place which became very famous, by the name of Sanssouci. In times coming, his thoughts are wholly pacific, of life to Minerva and the arts, not to Bologna and the battles. And yet he knows well, this latter too is an inexorable element. About his army, he is quietly busy, augmenting, improving it, the staff of life to Prussia and him. Silesian fortress building, under ugly Walrave, goes on at a steadily swift rate. Much Silesian settlement goes on. Fixing of the Prussian-Austrian boundaries without, of the Catholic-Protestant limits within.
Rapid.
Not too rough. Remodeling of the province from Austrian into Prussian, in the financial, administrative, and every other respect, in all which important operations the success was noiseless, but is considered to have been perfect, or nearly so. Cannot we, from these enormous paper masses, carefully riddled, afford the reader a glimpse or two? To quicken his imagination of these things, settles the Silesian boundaries, the Silesian arrangements, with manifest profit to Silesia and himself. In regard to the marches,
Herr Nussler,
as natural, was again the person employed. Nussler, shifty soul, wide awake at all times, has already seen this country, noticed the pass into Glatz with its blockhouse, and perceived that His Majesty would want it. From September 22d to December 12th, 1742, the actual operation went on, ratified, completely set at rest. January 16th following, Busching, italic, bite rage, and italic, Nussler, and Busching's italic, magazine, and italic b, x, Halle, 1776. Where?
pp 475-538
Ist a Geschichte der etc. Schlesischen Grenzscheidung im Jahr 1742. In great amplitude and authenticity. Nussler serves on 3 thalers 9 shillings a day. The Austrian head commissioner has £5, 30 thalers a day. But he is an elderly fat gentleman, pursy, scant of breath, cannot stand the rapid galloping about, and thousandfold inspecting and detailing, leaves it all to Nussler, who goes like the wind. Thus, for example, Nussler dictates, at evening from his saddle, the mutual protocol of the day's doings. Old Percy sitting by, impatient for supper, and making no criticisms. Then, at night, Nussler privately mounts again, privately, by moonlight, gallops over the ground they are to deal with next day, and takes notice of everything. No wonder the boundary pillars, set up in such manner, which stand to this day, bear marks that Prussia here and there has had fair play. Poor Nussler has no fixed appointment yet, except one of about £100 a year. In all my travels I have seen no man of equal faculty at lower wages, nor did he ever get any signal promotion, or the least exuberance of wages, this poor Nussler, unless it be that he got trained to perfect veracity of workmanship, and to be a man without dry rot in the soul of him, which indeed is incalculable wages. Income of £100 a year, and no dry rot in the soul of you anywhere. Income of £100,000 a year, and nothing but dry and wet rot in the soul of you. Ugly appetites on veracities, blusterous conceits, and probably, as symbol of all things, a pot-belly to your poor body itself.
Oh,
my friends, in settling the spiritual or internal Catholic Protestant limits of Silesia, Friedrich did also a workmanlike thing. Perfect fairness between Protestant and Catholic.
to that he is bound.
And never needed binding. But it is withal his intention to be king in Catholic Silesia, and that no Holy Father, or other extraneous individual, shall intrude with inconvenient pretensions there. He accordingly nominates the now Bishop of Nyssa and natural primate of Silesia,
Kardinal von Zinzendorf,
who has made submission for any late Austrian peccadillos, and thoroughly reconciled himself, nominates Zinzendorf Vicar General of the country, who is to relieve the Pope of Silesian trouble, and be himself quasi-supreme of the Catholic Church there.
No offense.
Holy Papa of Christian mankind, your holy religion is, and shall be, intact in these parts, but the palliums, bowls and other holy wares and interferences are not needed here. On that footing, be pleased to rest content. The Holy Father shrieked his loudest, which is now a quite calculable loudness, nothing like so loud as it once was. Declared he would himself join the army of martyrs sooner, and summon Zinzendorf to Rome. What kind of hinge are you? Cardinales of the gates of, hushed, shrieked his loudest, we say. But, as nobody minded it, and as Zinzendorf would not come, had to let the matter take its course. Adelung. 3a 197 to 200.
And,
gradually noticing what correct observance of essentials there was, he even came quite round into a high state of satisfaction with this heretic king. In the course of a few years, Friedrich and the Pope were very polite to each other thenceforth, always ready to do little mutual favors. And it is to be remarked, Friedrich's management of his clergy, Protestant and Catholic, was always excellent, true, in a considerable degree, to the real law of things, gentle, but strict, and without shadow of hypocrisy, in which last fine particular he is singularly unique among modern sovereigns. He recognizes honestly the uses of religion, though he himself has little, takes a good deal of pains with his preaching clergy, from the army chaplain upwards, will suggest text to them, with scheme of sermon,
en occasion,
is always anxious to have, as clerical functionary, the right man in the important place, and for the rest, expects to be obeyed by them, as by his sergeants and corporals. Indeed, the reverend men feel themselves to be a body of spiritual sergeants, corporals and captains, to whom obedience is the rule, and discontent a thing not to be indulged in by any means. And it is worth noticing how well they seem to thrive in this completely submissive posture, how much real Christian worth is traceable in their labors and them, and what a fund of piety and religious faith, in rugged effectual form, exists in the armies and populations of such a king. In 1780,
at Berlin,
the population being 140,000, there are of ECCLESISTIC kind only 140. That is 1 to the 1,000. At Munchen there are 30 times as many in proportion. Mirabeau. Italic Monarchie Prussienne. End italic 8. 342. Quoting Nicolai. By degrees the Munchaus and official persons entrusted with Silesia got it wrought in all respects. Financial, administrative,
judicial,
secular and spiritual, into the Prussian model. A long tough job, but one that proved well worth doing. In Prussia, I 197 to 200. The various steps from 1740 to 1806. In this state, accounts one authority, it was worth to Prussia about 6 times what it had been to Austria. From some other forgotten source, I have seen the computation 8 times. In money revenue, at the end of Friedrich's reign, it is a little more than twice, the 8 times and the 6 times, which are but loose multiples, refer, I suppose, to population, trade, increase of national wealth, of new regiments yielded by new cantons, and the like. Westphalen. In italic Feldzug de Herzogs Ferdinand and italic, printed,
Berlin, 1859.
Written 100 years before by that well-informed person, I, 65, says in the rough 6 times. Prus. 4, 292, gives, very indistinctly, the ciphers of revenue. in 1740 and some later year. According to Friedrich himself, italic ovra. 2102. The Silesian revenue at first was 3,600, 000 thalers, 540, 000 pounds,